Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to dissect the brilliant structural mechanics and the emotional core of Shakespeare's absolute most famous tragedy. And just a quick heads up, we're strictly focusing on the dramatic content here. That means the high-stakes plot, the incredible character arcs, and those deep, deep thematic conflicts that really make this story tick. We're leaving the historical background and the textual history at the door, so we can purely examine the anatomy of this masterpiece. Okay, let's dive right into this incredibly dark and atmospheric world. We begin on a cold, super tense platform before the castle at Elsinore. By strictly focusing on the high-stakes plot from the very first scene, we get to observe the intense psychological chess match that really drives this whole narrative forward. It's like we're stepping right into the middle of a deeply unsettled kingdom. To demystify this complex story, we'll map it out using the classic five-part dramatic arc structure. Our agenda covers the tragic conflict begins, the problem of Hamlet, the dramatic turning point, the ripple of tragedy, and finally, the final catastrophe. Section 1. The tragic conflicts begins. Let's look at how the tension is established in Act 1 and how the story is dramatically set into motion. So here we have a roadmap for the typical movement of a tragedy. It's essentially a roller coaster that we're about to ride together. Any dramatic action requires a definite movement. And in a tragedy, that movement involves a massive conflict between two opposing forces. We always start with a relative equilibrium, but, well, that can't last long, can it? Right. So the play starts with that equilibrium. But then the exciting force kicks off the real movement when Hamlet is given a terrifying command by his father's ghost. The disclosure of a fratricide, the fact that Hamlet's uncle literally murdered Hamlet's father to take the crown, completely shatters the piece. This is the match that lights the powder keg, stirring Hamlet to revenge. And this brilliantly illustrates the overarching external conflict. It frames the entire play as a brutal battle between two mighty opposites who basically trade the role of aggressor. Think about it. As the action rises in the first half of the play, Hamlet is the aggressor. He's investigating, he's plotting, but once we hit the turning point, the momentum violently flips. In the falling action, King Claudius goes on the offensive, and Hamlet is steadily forced right to the wall. Section 2. The problem of Hamlet. Because, as we'll see, that external battle between a prince and a king is really only half the story. So the absolutely crucial point here is that while the fratricide and the revenge plot thrills the audience, what our source calls the cheapest gallery story, it's actually the internal psychological conflict within Hamlet himself that holds our deeper interest. It's that agonizing friction between what he absolutely has to do and his paralyzing inability to just do it. What will Hamlet do, and why is he dallying? This is the ultimate question the source text poses right after the ghost's revelation. It invites us directly into the protagonist's baffling mindset. I mean, he has his orders, but he hesitates. He has to consider all these practical difficulties, like who would actually believe a ghost? How would he clear his own name? This internal problem of Hamlet is genuinely one of the most fascinating character studies in all of literature. As time stretches on, and get this, 2 whole months pass between Act 1 and Act 2, the king remains completely unharmed. Instead of taking immediate action, Hamlet adopts a transformation. He puts on an assumed or feigned madness to mask his investigation. And sure, this allows him to observe the court safely, but it also raises the stakes even higher and seriously worries the king, who starts watching him right back. Section 3. The dramatic turning point. Let's see how this builds to an explosive confrontation right in the middle of our dramatic arc. Hamlet seizes an incredible opportunity when a troupe of visiting actors arrives at the castle. He decides to stage a play, cleverly and honestly menacingly titled The Mousetrap, right in front of King Claudius. The play mirrors the exact gruesome details of the king's hidden murder. Hamlet's goal here is brilliant: catch the conscience of the king and prove without a shadow of a doubt that the ghost was telling the truth. As the tension in the room visibly thickens during the performance, Hamlet's mother, Queen Gertrude, delivers this famously oblivious, proverbial line: "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." She is just completely unaware of the trap snapping shut around her new husband, who is sitting right next to her. The frantic King Claudius asks Hamlet this just moments before the breaking point. When the murder is actually enacted on stage, the king rises in absolute panic. He cries out for light and halts the play entirely, fleeing the room. For Hamlet, this is it. This is the definitive proof. The king's guilt is confirmed once and for all. But here is the magnificent tragedy of the structure. Despite having his undeniable proof, Hamlet finds the king alone, totally vulnerable and attempting to pray, and he fails to act. He overthinks it. He wants a more perfect revenge, so he steps away. This creates the ultimate turning point of the entire play. By not acting right here, he pushes the narrative over the edge into the falling action, where he completely loses his advantage. Section 4. The Ripple of Tragedy. From here, the pacing accelerates drastically. It takes on a really somber, urgent tone as the awful consequences of that single moment of inaction begin to unfold. Take a look at the devastating cost of delay. Because Hamlet hesitated when he had the absolute perfect chance, a massive net of collateral damage is woven throughout the entire court. He accidentally kills Polonius, which sets off a chain reaction that ultimately claims all of these lives. Polonius, Ophelia, Rosencrantz Guildenstern, Laertes, Gertrude, and Hamlet himself. His failure to act precisely when he should have literally dooms them all. Perhaps the most heartbreaking of these casualties is the gentle and innocent Ophelia. Her tragic descent into real, devastating madness serves as this dark, twisted contrast to Hamlet's purely feigned madness from earlier in the play. Her eventual death becomes a really potent new factor that completely destabilizes her brother, Laertes. And notice how brilliantly the narrative juxtaposes Laertes against Hamlet here. Both are sons grieving a murdered father. But while Hamlet has been endlessly dallying and overthinking his task, Laertes rushes headlong into the court, demanding immediate blood. It's a striking thematic contrast that hits the nail on the head, highlighting exactly what Hamlet is lacking. Section 5. The Final Catastrophe. Let's see how all of this comes crashing down. In a chaotic flurry of poisoned swords and tainted wine, the king's defensive plot against Hamlet actually succeeds, but it violently brings everyone down with it. When Hamlet realizes he has been poisoned by Laertes' blade and that his mother has been poisoned by the king's cup, he finally strikes Claudius, crying out, "Then, venom, to thy work." The deep irony of this ending is just incredible. After all those agonizing monologues, all the delay, all the deep philosophical planning, Hamlet finally achieves his revenge. But not through careful calculation. He does it through a sudden, fatal, violent reaction during a chaotic climax. When the dust settles, only Horatio is left standing to tell the tale. As we look at the wreckage at the end, we really have to ask ourselves this question from the source material. What is it that keeps this tragedy from being mere melodrama? Why does this play remain a profound masterpiece of human psychology rather than just a bloody spectacle? Well, it's because the external bloodshed is merely the result of that incredibly, universally relatable internal struggle. It's the agonizing difficulty of doing what we know we absolutely must do. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder regarding the structural genius of the tragic arc we just explored in this explainer. If Hamlet had acted sooner, who would have survived? Could any of the characters be spared from the play? Is every single piece of this intricate puzzle absolutely necessary for the catastrophe to occur? Think on that as you consider the masterful architecture of this timeless story. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring.